Hi guys, welcome to the Improvement Season podcast. It is me, Steve Hall, and on the other side of the camera, of my screen, of the world, not in Australia, he is in Germany. I've screwed this intro well and truly up. It's Pascal Floor.
No, it was actually quite nice. I would have loved if you actually say the Destroyer of Worlds or so.
Thanos. Click your fingers.
Like that.
Boom.
Destroyer of Worlds is actually Galactus, just by the way.
Galactose.
Mm.
Sounds like
not galactose. Galactose is a monosaccharide.
Galactose. Yeah, I was like, that sounds like lactose.
Yeah. Galactose. But is it a disaccharide? No, I think it's a monosaccharide. Anyway, no, it was actually a decent introduction. So thank you very much. I'm absolutely fine. I don't know if you even asked how I am, but yeah. I'm just telling you, I'm fine. I'm doing well. Training is going really well. Had a comment here over on YouTube actually saying like, hey, Pascal, you look like you make actually some decent gains here recently.
Kind comment.
Yeah, totally. And I basically got back to that. Exactly. I was getting back to that person and saying like, okay, you must be kidding me because that's not true. No, training is really going well. And I wanted to talk about that at some point. Maybe not today, but here in the future or so, because
today's training perfect. Go for it.
Is it?
Perfect.
Yeah, I mean, every once in a while, I already talked about what I changed here over the past like 1 to 2 years. And it was a long process to actually change the entire mentality, the entire approach about the training, how you go into the training session and what your focus is. Because so long, I was so attached to the big three movements and always trying to put load on the bar. And I completely stepped away from that. And also just like what my entire focus is in the session. It's not just to destroy myself and lift the heaviest weight possible, but just like, I think this is something I assumed I was from a mental perspective. I think I'm now a bodybuilder, which like 1 to 2 years ago, I thought that I am, but probably I wasn't. I still probably had the wrong focus when it comes to the overall training approach and stuff like that. And I think that completely changed, and it goes to show now, not just in the visual results, but also just like the things I can see in my spreadsheet. Funny enough, so many lifts have actually gone down over the past like year or so. So you would actually be like, okay, shit, you are actually regressing. But my body composition tells me something different. And thus, I'm absolutely confident in that most things are probably heading into the right direction. And the way I look at things has completely changed, which also, of course, carries over to how I coach as well, because it just opened up your mind and also made you susceptible for new impressions on the way you look at training and what training or how you define training and how you define bodybuilding in comparison to just training overall. Because, I mean, it's quite obvious when you really think about it, but training isn't just training. Training has a lot of subcategories, so to speak, right? I mean, when we just talk about resistance training, there's a whole bunch of things you can do. Even something like CrossFit is kind of resistance training when you really think about it, right? And because of that, and because that just opened up my perspective or made me more susceptible to new suggestions and new impressions, I think I evolved a lot over the past like 1 to 2 years, not just from an athlete perspective, but also from a coach's perspective. And yeah, I think that's wrapped it up quite nicely. But this is, of course, then showing in my overall mentality, how I approach things, but also at the same time, I think, at least in my physique as well.
So to make it a little bit more, I don't know, some maybe practical take-homes for listeners, apart from, obviously, you mentioned getting away from the big three, what other things what of those, like in the gym, what are you doing differently to what you were doing before, maybe?
Definitely the mind-muscle connection. I'm not saying that the mind-muscle connection is the most important thing, right? But ever since I'm doing that, you are not then deviating or being distracted, but you are really focusing on building or feeling that muscle. And while you're doing that, right, you know that you will be providing a stimulus. We all know that when we are, I know that there is a buzzword now when it comes to central nervous system fatigue, but I think it's still a true thing, because hopefully we all know that sensation of just feeling absolutely crap and run down, like that systemic fatigue, highly elevated systemic fatigue, right? Which is then not just run via the peripheral nervous system. So you're not just like weak overall, you have a poor motor unit recruitment. That's not what I'm talking about, but also brain fog. Your cognition is just down as well. You can't really concentrate, all that kind of stuff, what I'm talking about. And when that is occurring, right, we all know that then firing the motor unit, so activating the peripheral nervous system, is a hard task to do. We probably all know that sensation when we are truly overreached. We go in there and we simply can't activate the muscles we are trying to work on. When we are fully recovered, we just go in there and be like, holy shit, with the first repetition, I can already feel my biceps. But sometimes it's just like when you absolutely just run into the ground, or when you did run yourself into the ground, then you're going in there and it takes you like maybe forever, or you won't even get to the point where you are feeling your muscles, right? And now I'm going in there really trying to feel it each and every single repetition. I know it sounds a little bit bro-ish, but it is what I'm doing to actually really focus on the muscle groups, to really give it the stimulus it needs, and also then to secure and make sure that my technique is always like on point, like at least 90% of the time. When it's then getting a little bit iffy every once in a while, maybe with the last repetition or so, that may be all right. I try to, of course, avoid it as often as I can. But something like this, right, especially like the entire approach, how to go through ranges of motion, I always make sure now to really, truly have a consistent execution. Because I know that sometimes in the past I was probably kidding myself and also cheating myself. And to be really honest, what's the value in cheating yourself? No one else is watching. So are you actually getting anything out of that? Absolutely not. It only makes things worse, right? So be absolutely honest with yourself. Be transparent, so to speak, right? Because there's no value in cheating yourself. And this is basically what I did there as well. I don't know if there's a practical takeaway. I think that is something that you have to discover for yourself, have to experience yourself, and maybe you need to go through phases of just fucking it up, or maybe even a severe injury. I think that's the best example. So many people are just having such a poor execution up to the point where a severe injury is happening. And then they are reassessing and reevaluating their entire approach and how they execute certain lifts or all the lifts. And then all of a sudden, the technique and execution becomes like next to perfect. We all know those kind of people. I've been that kind of person myself, right? And maybe it's the same when it comes to something like mind-muscle connection, hypertrophic stimulus. I think that some people, of course, are the genetic outliers who can get away with basically everything, who just like throw the weights around and still they grow, right? But that's not the majority of people. And I think that the majority of our audience isn't like that as well. And we are, most of the time, the people who are interested in the scientific field and like evidence-based community are the ones who aren't genetically blessed, because they were the ones like curious to find the solution for their problem of stagnation. And sorry, I went a little bit off tangent here.
I think it was good though, and it reminds me actually of a post that I did earlier this week talking about kind of, what was it? It was like, Perfect Technique is for the Weak was the title of the caption.
Right.
And I was surprised. Normally my videos, it was just a video of me bent over rowing with dumbbells. Normally my videos do poorly compared to like a physique shot or like an infographic. But this went down really well, or it got a lot of traction. There's so many people commenting about it. And it was basically me saying how so-and-so has poor technique and they're jacked. So that's how I'm going to train.
Yeah.
And then I was going through the theoretical reasons why I think maybe they can get away with it, and possibly it isn't the best thing for you to be doing. And it does come down to like that mind-muscle connection, and the technique is just the foundation for everything. And it's something you have to revisit. And it always frustrates me when people argue saying like, yeah, but technique, yeah, but you have to work hard and like you need to progressively overload. It's like, yeah, well, no one's saying you stick with the same weight to continue to perfect your technique. Once you've got workable technique, then you run and go, just like you learn how to drive, and then you really learn how to drive when you're on the streets. Like, I don't know, learning to ride your motorbike recently, you kind of learn how to do it, and then the real learning comes when you're not pedaling, when you're going a million miles per hour down the lanes.
God. And so just to throw something in there, and no, finish what you wanted to say, and then I throw it in.
I was only going to say some of the things that you kind of mentioned them. I think there's genetic outliers who can grow from anything. There's people that you don't realize how many drugs they're using. Mike really re-emphasized this when he came over, and he was like, sometimes I look at these big guys, I'm like, whoa, they're really impressive. And then he looks at what drugs they're taking, and now he's no longer impressed, because you can really do a lot with a lot of those. And then potentially there's those special, unique individuals who have what looks like a poor technique or execution, and it emphasizes their mind-muscle connection. I think they're a small percentage, and I was kind of just putting that one out there because I think there are some like that. But most of us want to execute and really have a focus on technique. And have it in a workable range. Like you said, once it's 90% of the way there, you don't need to keep focusing until it's 100% and never let it budge away from that. But have it within very acceptable form, because like we always say, like being consistent, doing this over the long term, the best bodybuilders are the ones who've been doing it the longest. If you get injured, you're certainly not going to be helping that. So yeah, that's all I had.
What is really cool and encouraging as well is I have the feeling that the bigger you get, the more likely it is that you can recruit more motor units. And I have the feeling that the bigger I'm getting, the nicer it is to do stuff like a training, like bodybuilding training, because you can slowly then, I don't know, you can engage, maybe it's the wrong terminology, but you can engage more muscles. I don't know if that's really the case. Yes, probably, because you can activate, or more motor units are activated, and thus, yes, more muscle fibers are probably involved there as well. But you know what I mean, right? It doesn't. So when you're now doing bicep curls, back in the days, it was just like, yes, I'm doing bicep curls, but it's not really that I get that skin ripping pump or so. Never had it in the past. Never knew what the people are talking about. Never, right? And slowly I can relate to that. Slowly I feel like, okay, shit. Yes, when I really want, I can get those really nasty pumps. And I see myself then in the mirror, and I'm then like, oh, cool. Never seen that before. Never seen that size before. And I can slowly start to understand where that vanity comes from, that people are taking all the selfies in the gym mirrors because the lighting is good here as well. So that's a cool feeling as well. And I know it sounds a little bit ridiculous and stupid as well, but let's be honest. And this is the same question James asked at one of the seminars. Who here trains at least a little bit to look good naked? And it's the majority of people. Let's be real here. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Who doesn't want to look good in their own perception, right? Who doesn't? You can't really say that you're only doing it for health purposes. That's not the audience we are talking to anyway, because when you're doing it for health purposes, then you're not training 6 days a week. Then you're only training like 2 to 3 days per week, also doing a little bit of cardiovascular work, right? That's health, but it's not bodybuilding 6 days a week training, or even twice a day training 6 times throughout the entire week, right?
I do it all to get laid, Pascal.
Yes, I know. And you can see where that leaves you.
Yeah, it just leaves me frustrated because I'm in a relationship and I can't do anything.
Exactly. You're only getting like attention from boys.
It's completely true. Most of the feedback I get is from men. Actually, I even know that because 70, and it's gone up recently, 76% of my followers are male, 24% are female. So I'm just pulling in.
That is just because of toxic masculinity.
Probably.
It is.
I am a pusher of that.
Yeah, anti-feminism. You son of a bitch.
I actually had a personal anecdote to your kind of being able to have better mind-muscle connection as you get more advanced, potentially recruit more muscle fibers. my calves, I could not contract my calves, or at least my right calf, I couldn't contract it. And now in various positions, I can contract that calf. It's still small as hell, but it's grown a little bit and I can now actually contract it. And that's down to really focusing on technique and trying to recruit it, because I guess Scott Stevenson calls it like, motor morons, people who just can't like learn technique and like they just can't recruit muscle fibers. Like my right calf is a bit of a motor moron. So over time, it's same with my back. Over time, I've just been able to connect with my back. I think you see that with people posing. I've had kind of, and I think you have as well, Pascal, competitors who have struggled to really kind of do a front relaxed and spread their lats, and after a while of practice, then they can control that muscle to do what it is. It's just like a technique. Any skill just takes time.
Hey, look at me. I think that in that sense, you are talking basically about me, because I do remember when I was over in London, right, 2017 for the contest prep, and we took a little bit of update photos and stuff like that. I had such issues making the lats spread. Such issues.
Tiring as well, right?
Yeah. And now, no worries whatsoever. But also because I took so much care about my lifting technique when it comes to my back movements. I always struggled a little bit to engage my lats, and also just the entire back. So the rhomboids, the single parts of the back musculature, right? And now, because I focus so much on the mind-muscle connection and actually proper technique, and I think that many people struggle with the back in particular because you can't really see it, right? You can't watch yourself in the mirror and then kind of engage the back or so, right? That's also why it's so helpful when other people are touching your back at the same time or so, right? Then it makes it easier for certain individuals to engage the back properly. And ever since I did that, and it took a long time, think about it, it took me like 1.5 to 2 years to actually get to the point of building muscle mass while at the same time taking care of the technique. It's nothing that happens overnight. And I think that this is something that many people are always forgetting about as well when we have certain individuals or clients work with us who have a little bit unrealistic expectations or goals with their overall physique or with the things that they want to achieve in a short period of time, which is like, to be honest, I take a look at your technique and we have to take care of that one first, because otherwise you won't get there to your desired outcome at all, right? And while it may seem or feel like a step backwards at first, it's like the typical saying, and I know it's getting boring at a time, but one step back, 2 steps forward, or even more steps forward. It is what it is. And sometimes that's just a necessary evil to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's something I've become really a stickler for, is when I get a new client, I need to see their technique and actually their intensity before I go ahead and add any volume. So I'll have sometimes, and unfortunately, and if they listen to this, buck up your ideas a little bit maybe, who sign up and then we don't have that for a while. And I'm like, I really need to see how you're performing these, because whilst I know you think you're confident and it's all fine, I don't want to risk injury. And what is it? Every unit of volume is another unit of risk. Is completely true. And people, I probably from the outside in, look at us and they're like, yeah, they're the guys who push volume on people and like blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, only when it's appropriate, and it's not appropriate until we know it is and it's safe, secure, and you've got the intensity and technique.
No, absolutely. And just to add one more thing, and that is, fuck, what was it again? Totally lost what I wanted to say.
How are the potatoes? Are they going down still if you sack those off?
I got rid of the potatoes. I needed. I couldn't stand the relationship anymore. It just annoyed me too much. Funny enough that Katie bought actually a pack of a bag of potatoes, and it's now sitting there and
growing little things off them.
Not yet, but it will probably if I don't decide to eat them. By the way, I wanted to make some salmon here today with having it had a is it called a marinade?
Marinade, yeah.
Marinade on top of it, and it looked fantastic, right? So I went ahead, cooked it, and I was so disappointed. And I never throw away food. Okay, never is not true because I did it here today, but hardly ever. I'm someone who's not really having great taste buds. That's just the thing. I mean, I would probably never be able to be some kind of connoisseur, so not going to happen. So you can actually just give something to me and I'm just going to eat it. However, that was so freaking disappointing, and I threw it away. And then I went out and bought a kebab.
Brilliant.
Because I had nothing else at home. And that just goes to show how crappy that salmon was, because I needed to go out and buy a kebab instead. Yeah, so... Yeah.
How is nutrition, by the way? You still maintenance, slight surplus?
I'm still at maintenance. Taking it really, really flexible, which... I mean, I don't think that is... When you have been doing that for such a long time, right? You get a really good feel for how much it is you can eat and can get away with. And right now, I'm also at the point where I'm not really craving food anymore. Which, like I said, I can't really eat the potatoes with quark anymore, because that just blunts my hunger that much that I won't even get to my desired calories for the day. So that's why I implemented a little bit more of palatable foods. So what I'm doing at the moment is I'm eating, once again, I know that the summer, at least in Europe, isn't great so far, but I'm eating a little bit of ice cream once again, because finally, ever since like the end of last year, I think, we have low-calorie ice cream, such as Halo Top, but I'm not really a fan of Halo Top, but the Breyers ones are actually quite decent. And I showed it to you, right? The Oppo Colombian chocolate hazelnut. That one is amazing. Honestly, like 350 calories. Still super expensive, but that one is actually really, really great. Really great.
My hunger and appetite has... I think I said after like a couple of weeks of the mini cut, it was pretty damn good. I was still really ravenous. I got to the point at which I really don't want to eat anymore.
I can't even fathom how you must feel, because you're eating like 1,000 calories more than I do.
I'm going to have to push to 4,000 because my weight's been sitting... It's been like fluctuating up and down around 194. I'm just like, I need to... if I'm going to go to 200 pounds, I'm going to have to really
and this is funny, because the last time you've been at that weight, it started to stagnate as well, right?
Yeah, I had to push to 4,200 to get to like 197 pounds. I think I ended last time. So yeah, it's going to start.
What are you eating then across the day? Is it also like you're eating a lot of palatable food because you're simply not able to get all the food in?
So my 5 days of my week diet's basically exactly the same. So first thing in the morning, massive bowl of oats with berries. I put in De Novo Whey, I have to say De Novo Whey Protein, sponsored. Click link below. Steve, 5% off. And I then cover that in honey. So that helps. And I've been eating with...
When you're already covering stuff with honey, you know that you're serious about...
So 100 calories or something worth of honey is over that. And I eat that now with you know, like the spoons that you eat like soup with, like the bigger spoons.
Yeah.
I'm eating that because I can't use like smaller spoons anymore. It just takes too long. So I have that, and then intra-workout is still like some whey isolate and dextrose, so that's not too much. That's like 200 calories or something within that. And then post-workout is I have 120 grams worth of cereal, so quite a big bowl of cereal, and then whey protein and a banana, and eat that. And then my next meal is going to be, I normally have beef. So it's normally like lean beef or like a beef steak with 2 bagels. Bagels are so calorie dense, actually. It's really awesome. And they're quite easy to eat. So have bagels. And then I normally have some tomato and some pepper with that as well. And then my evening meal is normally salmon or like something else with some other fat sauce, or avocado with... I try and get 3 portions of veggies in that meal as well. And then I normally have like a load of rice with barbecue sauce on it or something to help it come down. And then I probably need to chuck in like, I don't know, another bowl of cereal and some Faye and maybe a protein bar at the end of the day. That's how it looks.
The sound actually sounds really good with everything you're eating there. Funny enough is when you have a 2.5-year-old kid at home, right, who's basically just still primed to eat as highly palatable food and calorically dense food as possible, because he's just acting on instincts. It is what it is, right? And we I actually, because I have all those cereals at home. Got it from several different clients. So I love cereals, and we don't have the best variety in Germany. So I have all these cereals from the US. And I needed to hide them because every single time I'm eating a bowl of cereals, Hugo, even though he had something to eat and he said that he's satiated, right? He comes and sees me eating a bowl. He wants it as well. And that is not a good thing. I know. I mean, I've been a fucking fat child. I mean, I went to become a diabetic if I wouldn't have changed my nutrition, right? So I know what I'm talking about, that when you leave a child, or when a child eats like an adult or so, right, they become fat, especially when it's highly palatable food where they can't control themselves. You're not doing them a favor at all. And it's the responsibility of the parents to take care of proper nutrition for the child. And this is something that, while it is easy for me to judge other people, it is also the same thing where I'm blaming my parents on with how I looked and the way I ate, because they never been at home, and I always had the opportunity to eat whatever I wanted. And as a child, you don't know what it means that it's quote unquote unhealthy. You don't know what the long-term consequences may be. You're cognitively not able to comprehend what the consequences can be. And thus, it's so much the responsibility of the parents to take care of that and to have a little bit of control over that. Because of that, I have hidden all of the cereals. I don't know. I know it's not the coolest thing as well. Right. I could easily say like, okay, I'm not eating any kind of cereals at home, want to be a role model, right? While at the same time, I still have all those cereals at home. I'm still considering, though, not eating any kind of cereals at home anymore because of that role model function. While at the same time, though, it is like, yeah, I don't know. So just wanted to say, if at one point you have a child, you need to get rid of all those cereals.
I have two things to say. One is I got Oreo cereal for my birthday, which I love, and it brought back, as soon as I opened it, I smelt it. I was like, this brings back so many good memories of being in America when I was the age. But it was only when we were on holiday, my parents would just be like, oh, you can eat whatever you want, basically, whilst you're on holiday. So this was when I'd have like Pop-Tarts and a bowl of Oreos cereal for breakfast.
Can I ask you a question, Steve? And that is, so maybe it is a EU thing, and I'm not entirely certain. So Fruit Loops. At some point, I wasn't even aware of that because I haven't eaten Fruit Loops for such a long time with a bird on the package, right?
I know them.
They aren't available in Germany like that anymore. I don't know when this happened. Now there's a unicorn on the box, and they don't contain all of the colors anymore they had back in the days. I don't know when the change happened, and I don't know if it's a regulatory thing from the EU because of certain ingredients or so, but one of my clients sent me a Fruit Loops from the US where the bird is still there with all the colors. I even think that there were more colors in there than back in the days when we still were able to get those boxes. Is it the same in the UK? Do you still get the boxes with the birds on, or is it also a thing with the unicorn? And if not, if you only get those unicorn boxes, what happened?
This is a hilarious discussion, by the way. So I think it was I think the unicorn's like a limited edition thing. I don't think it's like a permanent thing. I might be wrong, but I know exactly what you mean. I've seen the unicorn, but I think we still get the imported bird ones
because
as well.
I googled that and I
really?
couldn't find anything.
Yeah, it
and
might
I
be
was
limited
already
edition,
considering writing Kellogg's a message and asking what is going on there. But just like because I wasn't really susceptible to the boxes before that, so it could very well be that it's only a limited edition. But I perceive it now that something has changed, and it has changed like ages ago or so.
Let me get to the second thing, because this is quite hilarious. So I was at home this weekend, which was my birthday, by the way, guys. I did keep it quiet because it sounds really bad, but I get loads of messages over on Facebook if I end up having my birthday there, and most of them don't know who I am, really. And I know it's really nice, but I feel like I have to respond to every single one, and it takes up my whole day. Not really, but it's just easier not to. So people can message me directly if they want to, and I know you guys all appreciate me, so you don't need to say anything. Anyway, so without that, but so went home for a birthday barbecue, and my nephew Alex is hilarious because he eats so much food. So seriously, we had the barbecue. I think he had 2 burgers, 2 sausages. Like, he was helping himself to all the food, and he wouldn't stop. He cried because he couldn't have any more food because my sister and my brother-in-law basically stopped him and were like, no, you can't have any more. But he eats, like, it wasn't just the palatable food. He's like, he wants olives, tomatoes. Like, he's just eating everything. He can't be satiated, but he's not fat yet. And they came back. Not yet. They came home from the US. They'd literally just been there, and he didn't come back, like, way chubby. So he must have a metabolism of, like, the gods, or he runs and goes mad, which he also does. So
I also no idea how the metabolism of a child really works, because I mean, so many people are just like saying, okay, let them eat, right? But at the same time, I'm just too skeptical about it because I've seen it so often. And I mean, we have an epidemic when it comes to obesity, and it starts in the childhood. And if you are setting your child up to become fat in the childhood, that just sets them up for a more difficult life, I think, because you're probably setting them up for a obese lifestyle, so to speak. At least that's what I would assume, right? But funny enough, Steve, so Katie is now in week 30, right? So we have 10 more weeks to go. And we are, so like 4 weeks ago, it turned out that the baby is already quite heavy for its age. And now she went to the doctor again yesterday, and it is already weighing 1.7 kilograms, which is equaling to the size a child has at the week 34. So I'm hoping to get a really massive child. Maybe
that was Miguel posted his infographic, like high childbirth. It gives you,
and I really hope that there is an epigenetic trait that I could actually give to my son, with me lifting for like 7 years, hard all the time. Like, maybe that there is an epigenetic factor now contributing to that. And I'm really hoping that it is. I don't want it to be my fat my fat one, or my fat self. I rather want it to be my lifting self. And I just found it funny because you talked about Alex, who's just eating and not really getting fat. Hopefully my son will be like this as well.
I definitely got my parents' big, thick joints. Like, my mum has like big wrists, and like both of them are built like just big. And I got my dad's biceps. And his bad eyesight as well. So, and teeth.
Oh god! But the teeth are actually quite good.
They're okay. And actually, I got his hairline. My dad's like Charlotte keeps saying I look so much like my dad now. And it's just like, oh, damn it.
Definitely look like my mom. In some pictures, I'm just like, holy shit. Fucking hell, I've never seen that before, but I actually look like my mom. I don't want this.
Right, shall we get some questions? I feel like
let's do that.
Indulged ourselves enough here. So the first question is from Wesley. So thank you, Wesley, for being a Patreon supporter, or Wes rather. So we'll get straight to your question.
We all know Wes. Everyone who's listening should know him, at least when you are checking regularly the comment section as well.
Is he gains?
Yeah, squat. No, he's the squat gain? No, he's the squat dude. The squat dude.
So Wesley has asked,
Gaines is Eugene Stoner, if I'm correct now.
And actually, to confirm, Wesley said, by the way, Pascal said that I have to send my questions through the improvement season through Patreon. So that's what I'm going to do. So if you are a Patreon supporter, you want to get your question answered, message us over there, because then we can prioritize those questions. If you want a prioritized question, support us over on Patreon for as little as what you like to, and thank you all for doing that. So he said, why is it that you can't push big weights with BFR bands, so blood flow restriction? If you could do 50 reps with a high weight, then I see no problem. Okay, so he's saying why, not saying you can't do it, but it's prescribed not to do it, basically. He said, also, is it okay to implement nucleus overload training with BFR? For example, putting the band on my leg. I remember reading this question. Putting the band on my leg when going for a walk every day. Thanks as always. Have a great day.
Is it actually like nucleus overload? So I've never heard the theory behind it, but is it like nuclear domain theory that new nuclei are being built and thus there's an overload? I don't know. What can I imagine under nucleus overload?
I don't know what it is, because from what he's saying there, he's kind of talked about BFR, and then the walking with BFR is kind of the nucleus overload. So I don't know if it's like the nucleus overload is such a like, what's it called? Not overtraining, but like super compensation, and you're trying to overreach. Sorry. So maybe nucleus overload is basically like overreaching. I don't know if that's what it is. I'm not sure.
I can't say anything to that, to be honest. I mean,
I was just going to say, what I would say is the fact neither of us know what it is, I don't want to sound big-headed by that, but quite often if I haven't heard of it before, I'm automatically skeptical, because we keep up to date with the people who kind of know what they're talking about within the industry. And obviously there's always things we're going to miss, but it always makes me like, oof, if I haven't heard of that supplement or that thing, then I'm not sure. Like, it automatically raises eyebrows, at least.
No, but I can't say anything to that, to be quite honest.
I can say walking around with bands on your legs all day is going to be, don't do it. Don't do it.
No. That
will cause, like, you I don't even know what that would do. I don't think you could possibly do it. I think you actually, like, I don't know, would your leg drop off if they would tighten up?
Idea,
like,
really.
I don't know. You would just create such a metabolic disruption. You probably wouldn't be. If I've done BFR on my legs, and if you do like squats, like Smith machine squats, I've done them before, you cannot walk. Like, your legs are so fucked. You just stand there and you're like, oh my God, I'm going to fall over. Oh, I need to do another set.
My initial answer would be, or like question would be, why would you do it? But then the thing would be like nucleus overload, and I have no idea what nucleus overload is, and thus my question becomes redundant, because that would lead nowhere when we can't have like a back and forth now, unfortunately. Sorry, Wes.
And the only other thing he asked was about the BFR bands. If you can do 50 reps with a high weight, then I see no problem. You pick a weight that's appropriate for the BFR protocol. So if that's a high weight to you, or, well, it might be high weight to some person, but it then isn't a high rep weight for you, because if you can do 50 reps with it, that's not high, is it? Like, that's appropriate for what you're trying to achieve. So,
also, just to be play devil's advocate here, when are we using BFR? Most of the time, I only see really a true value in it when it comes to something like injury. Right? When you can't really use heavy weights, and you have to, or you want to still get a stimulus in. And even then, the scientific literature isn't really that clear. I think there was a recent study even showing that BFR, while in an injury, doesn't cause significant amount of hypertrophy, or isn't a replacement. Could be that I'm wrong here right now, but maybe there was something like that. But just to then raise the question of, okay, when we now use BFR, right? When we are injured or so, why not? And this is something I heard Peter Fitchen talk about when it comes to that. Why not then just use lighter weights and higher repetition ranges when we by now know that there is a hypertrophic stimulus up to something like a 30 rep range? When you can do 30 reps, the weight will probably already be so easy that you don't have to use BFR.
Yes,
just something that to think about, right?
Yeah, it's like the I very, very rarely ever prescribe it. It's basically for when people are injured, but it's very similar protocol, or the kind of the avenues for hypertrophy are very similar to myoreps in many ways, because you're essentially not allowing you're occluding blood and metabolites via the occlusion, and that's kind of what you're doing with myoreps, where you're not allowing that blood and the metabolites to dissipate because you're going again. You're kind of having that fatigued state. Much more practical. You might not look as hardcore and cool. The pump is excruciating, I have to say, from BFR. And I don't know if that potentially is a little bit more stressful and hypertrophic in some cases sometimes.
But you have then always the problem with the inconsistency of wrapping, for example. Always wrapping at the on the same place. Not all the muscle groups on your body can be blood flow restricted, and that raises a problem. Some people, due to pain tolerance, wrap it too tightly, maybe, which can cause a problem as well. So I think, and this is the first time when Peter Fitchen brought it up, that I really thought about it, that maybe BFR is something that I would use even less from now on, because that we now know that higher repetition work can induce the same amount of hypertrophic stimulus, and it will probably be easier to do than BFR, and also a little bit more consistent than doing BFR. And then you can still implement those techniques such as myo reps at the same time with those light weights and get the benefits of both worlds, maybe.
Yeah, the protocol's incredibly similar, actually, like with BFR to like any of the metabolite techniques. We've said this before. They're so similar. Lightweight, short rest periods, close to failure. Anyway, so next question. So this is from another Patreon supporter. It's Ryan Beaver. And he has said...
The Beaver!
I'm going to read his whole email because some of it is a little bit funny. So he said, so I almost always watch the YouTube of Cast when it's new, and I can't help but wonder, if you were to shave off your beard, how many years would it take off your face? I feel like you would look 20 years old again. I have. There probably is somewhere I had a shorter beard. I did look like a baby face.
I also know that the early episodes of the podcast, I think, or do remember that you didn't have a beard there as well.
Oh, did I not? Yeah, because I grew it out for my prep because I had skeletal face.
But I think that your beard, so you always have those faces where a beard actually makes them more attractive, and without a beard, not, or the other way around, right? And I think that a beard is just looking so handsome on you.
I'm blushing.
Steve, yeah. When I would be in London right now, I would come over and at least give you a hug or so.
I mean, I work out. I've got a beautiful beard. What more do you want?
Exactly.
Just a receding hairline.
And money. He's successful and has some Instagram fame. I mean, come on. I mean, what do you want more?
I am Insta famous. It's completely true. So anyway, he said, okay, real question. I am currently morally struggling with working for a big gym chain. We are being asked to sell clients detox products and random BCAAs. I'm sure other personal trainers may relate, but after a couple of years in a gym, you realize with 90% of your clients just wanting to lose weight, their success mostly comes from outside the gym and nutritional habits. How would you start to shift to an online coaching style these days if you were to do it over again? Thank you again, Tabevs. That's his Instagram handle, I think.
Would you kick it off first?
So yeah, I guess I get asked this question a fair few times because I did transition from one-on-one to online. I still think I do the same. I think it was really important for me to have done it the way I did, and I don't think I could have been the same sort of success story as I am now without it. I do think there are other ways to do it, and I'm sure Pascal will touch on that because he had a different experience. But I basically had clients, and you may well be doing this right now, Ryan, where you're working with them one-on-one, but also online. And you may just be able to transition them further towards more online and where you are taking care of their lifestyle habits, their nutrition and everything that goes on outside the gym, and you're taking them through their sessions. And slowly but surely, you'll get fantastic results with these people because you're a great coach. Then you get testimonials from these people, and then they refer people as well. And so you can do a great job, which you are. You get results, and then you share those results. And slowly but surely, hopefully, you can transition more and more to online than you are one-on-one. And then that's how I did it, basically. So I was completely kind of working for a gym, and I slowly picked up some of those guys in the gym as online clients, got great results with them. They referred me to their friends. I had things I could put online. Whilst doing that, obviously I was like blogging and doing a bit of YouTube, but not much. And then that gave me a baseline. And then from there, I just went all in online and just crushed it. And we've been doing that ever since. So that's how I did it, and that's how I might recommend you to do it. But I think there are other avenues now.
I mean, I can't really talk about, or can't really say that I would do the same, because I was quite lucky in the way everything turned out for me, right? I started my own business, and at the same time, the same month, Steve was looking for a new coach, and I applied and actually got the position, and ever since then we are Revive Stronger, right? So of course it's not something that I would hope for I was hoping for in general when I started out. That was never my intention, to actually look out for some kind of good online business where I then can hop on and become a coach. So probably it would be something like Steve, starting to put myself out there, trying to create some good and valuable content. And by the way, when you are already making such a decision because of moral and ethical things that are happening in your gym, I think that your heart is at the right place already. It really shows to me that you are trying to help people and that you're coming from a good place, and that the monetary thing is not really the true incentive for you switching over to that. And I think that this is one of the most fundamental pieces of the puzzle, and I give you big props to that. So the other thing wasn't as important for me and wasn't really sticking out as much from what you've been saying, but this was really like, okay, shit, yes, mate, you just proved that you are in the right business, or at least like you have the right intentions and the right motivation to be in the business, because that just proved that you are not just in it to make some quick bucks or so. So yeah, I mean, start off with doing what Steve said there, and keep that moral and ethical codex you have right now. Keep it on there, so that, yeah, you're not just someone who sells bullshit. There are plenty of people who are like that. We don't need more of them.
And I absolutely agree. And I think that was really nice that Pascal pointed that out. The only thing I would say, in addition, just thinking about how Pascal positioned himself, and it wasn't just full luck, was the fact that he attended seminars and networked. So we ended up chatting beforehand, and that had a huge role in him becoming the person I ended up picking, because I'd already talked to him, and I could tell he was a great guy, and he was also fucking on it when we had the application. Literally, his would probably come through the first out of everyone. Every single time it was high quality. I knew Pascal not only knew what he was about, but also was a good worker. And I knew that was someone who I just needed. He also was within like my Facebook groups, and we'd interacted online. So I think just being within the community, being a good person, working hard, doing good quality work, and this is many traits Pascal has in spades, will really pay off for you. And whether or not that's your own business, or you get poached by someone, or you're applied to someone looking for a coach, it will pay off eventually. So
that was never my intention back in the days, or never something I truly thought about. This is now when you bring that up, right? And this is something that you beefs can take to your advantage. You always want to position yourself that you are being seen from the people that are important to you, and that are either your audience or the ones you want to address. So when it is like a boss, for example, you want to, of course, have your boss seeing the work and effort you're putting in, so that you're maybe getting that promotion, right? If he doesn't notice your job, if he doesn't notice your work, it doesn't matter how hard you're working, right? Thus, you always want to put yourself in a position where other people can see your work and the great work you're doing, right? And the same applies to the audience. It doesn't matter whether you are putting out the most fantastic content ever produced when no one knows about it and no one notices it. All right. So, yeah.
Cool. Right. Next question is from Ariana. And that is a female name, right? Ariana?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So she has asked.
Beautiful name, by the way.
I do quite like Ariana. It reminds me of Aria, who I also like.
Yeah. No, beautiful name.
So
beautiful
she has asked, and let me just ask the question. What are some podcasts you guys follow, if any? Not just limited to fitness/bodybuilding either. Keep up the great work. I always look forward to new episodes. Thank you very much, Ariana.
Mm-hmm. So I'm not really following many podcasts anymore. I was following Sigma Nutrition for a long time. Yuma Iraqi's Iraqi nutrition podcast, but he's quite infrequent when it comes to that. The Sigma Nutrition there are too many episodes that are either above my head, above my I don't know, knowledge, and also things that simply don't interest me, right? Too many episodes. That doesn't mean that the podcast in it for itself is bad. I think that Sigma Nutrition and Danny Lennon is doing a fantastic job. But too many episodes that are unspecific for me personally. That's why I'm not regularly listening anymore. Every once in a while, when there pops up an episode, I'm more than happy to tune in into that. And other than that, our own podcast. I know that sounds narcissistic, but it is true. I mean, I just want to be transparent. I love our podcast. I love how Steve is doing the interviews. There's so much valuable information. And to be honest, I have listened through all of our episodes, not just once, not just twice, a couple of times, because there's so much valuable information in nearly all of the episodes. So yeah, sorry to be that narcissistic in that regard, but that is one of the podcasts I'm still listening to, which is also, of course, caused by me editing the episodes, so I have to actually listen to those. Other than that, I actually transitioned over to listening to a lot of ebooks now, because I have an Audible subscription, and that is just like super cool thing. Per month, having one ebook to listen to, pretty cool, in my opinion. And there is one more podcast which probably you don't really even care. That is a German podcast with two guys, quite funny. I listened to that podcast since I think 6 years now already. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And I can just relate so much to what they've been going through, their life, what they've experienced in the past, and what they are talking about. And it's just like an easy listening where I can just leave it on the side and then listen to that. Oh, by the way, RP Plus, the webinar, the weekly Q&A with Michael Sertel and James Hoffman, which is not really a podcast, but this is something I regularly tune into because it's just super entertaining and quite valuable at the same time. And I just love both of those guys. Like, honestly love them.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I used to listen to a lot of podcasts, and I think that was maybe partly down to having the time. I'm way more busy with work now and other obligations, which I'll come on to. But also, I think because my steps were so high, I had to go out and walk, and it was like, what can I listen to? So the first podcast I ever got into was the Fitcast. This was the first fitness podcast. This is one of the biggest fitness podcasts there ever were, with Kevin Larrabee. And this is where I first came across Lee Peel, who I adore. And I want her back on the podcast this year because I just think she's brilliant to talk to and a lovely person. Probably a bit weird because we've only talked like twice, but I really like her. I think she's really great. But I loved their podcast. It was very conversational, and that was part of what inspired me to go into the industry. And I hope maybe we do that with some people. We inspire them to get into the industry. I definitely hope so. But yeah, now with filming our own episodes, so maybe filming 1 to 2 of our own a week, or maybe 1 on average a week, obviously 1 on average because we release 1 a week. With that, I actually do research most of the time, so I will look what podcasts that person's been on, hear what they've spoken about, see if there's anything we want to ask, questions, and just general research into what they're about and what they're doing. So sometimes I listen to just random episodes. So normally I'm not listening to a podcast, it's more so the person I'm interviewing podcasts they've been on. So I have that, and then I'm quite frequently on podcasts now, so I'm probably on a podcast a week now. That takes time as well. We do ours every single week, so that's already quite a lot of hours of just podcasting and chatting and that sort of thing. Then with RP Plus that Pascal mentioned, it's gold. The Q&A is brilliant. I love it with those guys as well, and they have more videos as well in addition to that. And then if I've got free time, I really want to prioritize like maths, which I wish I could put more time into it. For whatever reason, maths is not, for me, incredibly convenient. I don't know what it is. There's just something about it. It's not as convenient as other things. I don't know why. I don't know if it's the information and the way it's laid out. Just for me, it's not as, I don't go out of my way to try and like include it because it's just like a bit awkward sometimes. And then I'll listen to, sometimes I will say JPS, sometimes they have a guest on who I really want to listen to. So Jacob Skepis and his crew. And then Abel also, I think, does a pretty damn good job sometimes. Not sometimes, but with like some of his guests are really interesting. I didn't mean to say that. Abel, I really like his interview style as well. He's different to me and has a different perspective. So I quite like listening to him on his. And then in addition to that, I do tend to keep up with AJ Morris as well on his podcast when his sound audio quality is okay, because that was his recent one with George. I had listened to like the first 5 minutes. I was like, God, no.
Would you like to criticize even more podcasts?
But AJ knows it was not up to standard, so it's okay. He won't take that offensively, hopefully. Everyone can improve. But I do listen, and that's a shout out to
roasting
AJ and
everyone.
Basically, everyone's podcast shit, so don't listen to them. Just listen to us. No. But then there's Netflix, Game of Thrones, Chernobyl. Now I want to watch. I'm rewatching Game of Thrones as well, because I'm just obsessed with that now. And there was something else I was going to, Audible, I'm also on. So I haven't finished Why Zebras Get Ulcers. It's really fucking long. It's like 16 hours. So,
I'm right now listening to Behave from Robert Sapolsky. And I'm listening to that since like, I don't even know since when I'm listening to that. I think that is 26 hours long or so.
Jeez.
I haven't checked, but you can always like see how long it is. But I think it's 26 hours or so, which is a bargain then if you really think about it with a subscription. Some books, and I'm always like picking the longest books first because I want to get something in return for paying, right? I don't want to just have a book that I could easily read in one day, right? And if I'm listening to that, I'm even done in like 1 hour or so, right? And that's why I'm always picking those longer books. But that Behave book is first and foremost, it's complex to listen to. Some books I would definitely reread because already like, so Behave is one of them where it was just like losing the focus sometimes because it's just like throwing around with different terms. And when you're reading it, it sticks with you differently. I think that what Can't Hurt Me from David Goggins, I listened to that one. Super easy to listen to, but it's more like a biography, right? Instead of somewhat of a textbook such as Behave or the things that Robert Sapolsky is putting out there. Robert Sapolsky's writing style is really, really cool. Also quite easy to listen to, but at the same time, because there are some complex topics, and then 26 hours long, splitting up like over, I don't know, 2 months, it's just, you're losing touch and you're losing like what it was all about. And when he talked about, we've discussed that in chapter 4. Okay, chapter 4 is already a couple of weeks back. Have no idea what you talked about there. So
I know it's really bad, but I found myself in terms of like those sort of educational things, whether it be like an audio book or even an ebook, I really enjoy shorter reads. It really was emphasized to me when I read the mini cut manual by Renaissance Periodization. I could literally read that in a day. It was like, boom, I've got all what I needed. Whereas some other books are really dense. And as we're doing some work on things, on something exciting, I've really enjoyed working towards like, it's a lot on one specific topic. And I've really enjoyed that rather than kind of trying to put everything into one like huge Bible of a book. It's just like, there's always more to add and you miss things. Whereas actually, if you just pick one topic and you just blast it, I quite like that.
I think the problem is also how you go about it, right? If you're only looking for something like entertaining or so, or if you were looking for educational purposes. And when you're reading a book for educational purposes, I think it's always a good idea to then really sit down, like with a piece of paper maybe, and make some notes. And then after a chapter, try to summarize what the chapter was all about. because otherwise you will probably not have listened or read well, and you will forget all the things that you've read there. And this is also something that I would encourage people to do when they are studying or so, like truly studying for university. When you're reading through a chapter, make some notes and write down what it was all about, and maybe make even like a short summary in words as if you're trying to explain it to someone else, right? And then it will stick with you. And this is something where I would like to have the time to actually sit down and read something like Behave, make the notes. But it's the same as it is with podcasts, and podcasts is already a source of education that doesn't require you to sit down with all of your senses, and it allows you to do something beside that to save, unfortunately, some time, right? And even that time is sparse, and that's also one of the reasons, same as you, that I'm not listening to as many podcasts anymore as I did in the past. And same as you, I'm listening to some episodes from Able, for example, from JPS, but more so the ones I'm really just like interested in, such as the last one with Mano, for example, over on Abel's podcast. The ones who just catch my attention, where I'm just like, curious to hear what they talked about here. But I'm not specifically tuning into one specific podcast anymore for every episode.
Yeah, I guess for us, that was the hole we were trying to fill for ourselves. So every episode we produce is basically an episode we want to listen to. So we kind of, our podcast is the one that we tune into most of the time. So
yeah, and also that we would like to have out there, and thus we created it our own, right? So to have it actually out there. So yeah.
Do we have time for one more question, do you think?
Yeah, come on, let's do that. I mean,
should we give it to Wes again, leader of the squad?
Yeah, he's a Patreon supporter, so definitely.
He said, so when was this question submitted? Okay, quite a while ago. Actually,
beginning of April.
Yeah, the dates are done weird. So they're weird. They're American, basically. Anyway, so yesterday I was randomly minding my own business and suddenly lost my balance, causing me to fall. Of course, I couldn't fall into the couch that was there, but I fell right on the corner of the table. Ouch. Now my physician examined me, and he says that my rib or two are probably not completely broken, but there's a crack in them. This, of course, is a mesocycle focused on strength, so low reps, heavy weight. My physician says that I shouldn't press big weights for the next few months, though. What are your thoughts on this? What should I do now? Today, I just did high volume, light, moderate weight, 25 to 30 reps, 5 sets. Sorry for the long question again, but hey, that's what you know me for. So, haha, I'll support you guys through Patreon too, by the way. Love you. No homo hashtag.
So, two things. May I kick it off? Because I had a broken rib once due to squatting. So, it was, I think, in 2014 when I broke my left rib, one of the ribs, due to squatting, but more so because I had a new belt. It was the new Inzer belt, which was too tightly set, right? Because I had like that lever, or still have the lever prong belt, and when you actually set it too tightly, it is just too tightly. You will still be able to close it. It's not like the one you have with the prongs, where it's just like you can't even close it because you don't have the strength for it, right? So yeah, closed it too tightly, and then I squatted, and due to my squatting technique back in the days, it wasn't really the greatest. I was leaning forward a little bit, and due to the slight rounding in the lower portion of the lift, right? Due to slight rounding, all of a sudden my rib got compromised and broke, right? And I heard that pop. Like it was like a really dull boom, right? Throughout the entire body. I was just like, oh shit, that was painful. But it wasn't really that painful, right? It wasn't like I couldn't do anything afterwards. I still ended the entire session, and then I went home. It didn't get any kind of better after a couple of days. Still went into the training though, and then I went to the doctor, and he only examined it from the outside, didn't do any kind of x-ray or so. And he said So it was a false diagnosis. He basically said that one of my my rib cage wasn't aligned on my spine, right, and that I need physiotherapy. So he prescribed me some physiotherapy. I went to the physiotherapist for like 6 sessions, and he massaged on the spot of the broken rib, massaged on it. Still continued to train, right? And then after like 2 months, I didn't have any kind of pain anymore, right? Went into the gym, did the same thing, belt on, squatting, and I heard it pop again.
Oh, no.
I went to, once again, to the doctor. This time I was just like skeptical and saying like, that can't be true. Every single time it pops, and then I have a stabbing or like a really sharp pain in that area. And then we did an x-ray, and it turned out that it was already broken 2 months before that. Was a false diagnosis. He should have never prescribed me any kind of physio, because that made it obviously worse. And then I just needed to rest and recover. And he basically, what I did was actually not squatting with a belt, not having any kind of heavy bench press, because that really caused it to flare up because of the activation of my lat musculature. So what I would then recommend you doing is like high repetition stuff, something like you just mentioned. I think now it's like nearly 2 months ago, so I would assume that the period of recovery time is already over, but I would have then suggested something like this. Basically what we've talked about when we talked about the BFR training, of higher repetition work, pushing it maybe closer to failure, but avoiding any kind of heavy compound lifts, more so things that you can control, or where the likelihood of you and technical breakdown is decreased, so that you're not compromising that position anymore, and that it can heal. Because thing is that the reason why it probably broke a second time is because the bones didn't heal up completely, so it didn't really close completely. It was probably already under the process of repairing itself, right? Because it every once in a while, of course, underwent some recovery time. And bones, however, bones, joints, tendons, ligaments, they don't really they aren't really receiving that much blood flow to the area. That's why it takes so much time to actually recover joints, tendons, ligaments, etc., right? And my bone area in that, or the rib cage, probably healed already, but not to that extent that I was fully recovered. And this is where then the second pop happened, because it was just susceptible to popping again. And take your time, because let it heal once, like properly, and then get back. Instead of trying or risking it, it's not worth it. It's really not, because that would set you back a couple of months once again.
That story, when you said it popped the second time, I was just like, no.
In that moment, I was just like, what the fuck? Because it wasn't really, that isn't a pain as if I don't know, you are cutting your finger or so, where it's just like, what the fuck, that small little piece of a cut here, and why does it hurt that much? It was just like, it popped, you felt a little bit of a sharp sensation there, but it was only like painful when you really touched it. Other than that, it wasn't really anything significant, right? And and when it moved or so, then it was painful.
Yeah, I know of people who have had broken ribs and like continued to play their sport, and they only realize really late that it's been broken the whole time.
Same goes for people who were in an accident or so, and they never realized that they had actually some broken ribs. It can actually be quite dangerous, though.
Oh, I can imagine.
They can punctuate your lungs, for example.
Damn.
So, yeah, but in my case, it was just like from squatting.
I would only reiterate what Pascal would say. Probably, I imagine bracing is something you want to avoid. So, like chest supported things, machine work, light reps, all of those sort of things. And I completely concur in that. Like, give it its time, because it can be almost healed, and then you just do it, and it's back at stage one, and it's so frustrating to allow yourself to get into that position. And I know, and we just have to keep saying it, because I'm completely the same as, like, I think bodybuilders are just like this. We wanted to be better yesterday, so we're just continuously trying to do things to try and make it better, and just give it time. Don't rush it. Try and prioritize something else in your life right now. That's what I would say, at least. But I think that's probably us done.
Yeah. Cool. Anything you want to say?
No, I have nothing. I don't think we have. Oh, we have the pre-sales live for the, or it would have ended now, right? So the footage is now available for you to purchase and download immediately.
Sure.
So if you didn't want to get in the cheaper price on the pre-sale, and now you're just hearing this and you're like, oh, I just wanted to download it immediately because I can't possibly wait for the pre-sale, I don't know, then you can get it. So it's very exciting that people are going to start receiving that, because we invested a lot in kind of getting recorded, and it looks really quality. So I'm excited for people to...
And it sounds quality.
Yeah, that's important. Well, that's the most important thing.
Yeah. No, absolutely amazing footage. I needed to watch through the entire thing just to double check it. And I was just like, then first realizing how good all the things were that these guys were talking about, because on the day I was a little bit more distracted in running the entire thing. So yeah, I can wholeheartedly recommend the video footage, not because we are selling it, but just like I would even recommend it if we weren't the ones selling it, because it's just like truly great information packed in a package, wrapped in a package. Yeah, you know what.
Cool. So I think that's all we have. Otherwise, we will talk to you next week. Take care.
Yeah, cheerio, guys.